without further ado, let's carry on and talk to you a little bit about Andalusia. But first, of course, for those of you who are new to Wheel and Anchor, a couple of words about what we are all about. We are a community of travelers from all across Canada. The concept I came up with after having traveled with a lot of people that I in many ways actually became friends. And I actually have been organizing trips for Canadians for the better part of 30 years. And what I found through the course of doing organized travel is that when you get people together who have something in common, who have as we like to say, a like-minded approach to exploring the world, to experiencing all of the fascinating aspects of culture, of traditions, of food and wine, all the things that come along with travel around the world. When people enjoy it in the same way, you have a much better experience. So our mission at Wheel and Anchor was to bring people together, and we largely have done that. We've just had a couple of trips come back from here in Southeast Asia, specifically in Cambodia and Vietnam. They had an absolutely phenomenal time, got to know each other. We showed them some great experiences, and most of all, some new friendships and connections came out of all that. And that's really what our mission is not only to show you some great parts of the world and have you become well-traveled in the Wheel and Anchor fashion, which is doing it at a little bit of a slower pace, and not staying in, the typical tour group hotels. I have a philosophy of travel which says if a tour bus is going this way, I want to be able to go that way. Not always logistically possible exactly that way, but we certainly strive to make that happen. So I see Paula has joined us as well. Good morning, Paula. Yes.
Morning.
And you're once
Hello.
off for some reason, right?
Yeah, it says the video setting is blocked.
Technical support on that. So anyway, apologies. We're going to carry on. And the other aspect of what our goal is to become connected, as I mentioned, in the context of meeting like-minded people, but also getting connected not only to your fellow travelers, but also to the people that you meet along the way. And, we really emphasize that connection with the locals. That's just such an important part of the experience of travel in our mind. So that's kind of the philosophy behind Wheel and Anchor. I'll take a moment now and introduce our team. My name is Gordon Drager. I'm the founder of Wheel and Anchor. As I mentioned, I've been organizing travel for over 30 years. Yeah, it's really been a pleasure to me. But of course, I've worked with some great people along the way, but none greater than the team at Wheel and Anchor that we have now, in particular, Paula and Barb, who are our trip specialists. They are the ones who pick up the phone when you call into our office and you inquire about joining one of our trips. You'll get these terrific women who know all about the programs that we offer and do their best to make sure that you are able to join us on these terrific trips. So, and yeah, Paula's video isn't working this evening, so but you can see a great picture anyway. Today, as usual, we are going to take you on a little journey by the way of this webinar presentation around Andalusia together with me. I just visited Andalusia recently in October to refresh my memories from decades past and to put together this delightful program that I'm super excited about. Super excited to sharing with you this evening, or this morning, I should say. Evening for me, morning for you. Just to give you the geographical overview, as I like to do, we're talking about Spain here, obviously, which is the country here down in the southwestern part of Europe. We will begin and end this trip in Madrid, even though our focus is on Andalusia, which is this chunk in the southwest corner of the country. Why? Madrid is just an easier access point. To fly into Seville or Malaga, you've got to make a connecting flight, and there isn't a lot of great connections available from Canada. So Madrid, you can fly from Toronto nonstop, not every day of the week, but often enough that we've aligned the dates with what we believe the Air Canada schedule to be. God forbid they change it between now and then, but nevertheless, that is the plan. And Madrid itself is a great city to begin and end the trip because you may want to come in a day or two early if you haven't visited Madrid before. I love the city. I like it better than Barcelona. Everybody's all about Barcelona. I think Barcelona's great too, but Madrid is a real living city. Anyway, I won't dwell on that now because we'll get into that in the day-by-day itinerary. From Madrid, we're going to travel by high-speed train down to Seville, which is about a 2.5 hour train journey. And is exciting in and of itself. They have a great high-speed rail network. We're going to spend the first 3 nights in Seville, which again is one of the most popular cities in Spain to visit. Reasons why I'll tell you about in a minute. We're then going to travel up to Córdoba, which is only about an hour and a half away. We'll spend another 3 nights in Córdoba, which is kind of a gem that a lot of people don't stay in, but it's absolutely worth it. And we're going to end up in Malaga. And here's the interesting thing is that if you would have asked me a couple of months ago what I thought about Malaga, I hadn't been there in quite a long time. And when I visited in October, I was blown away by this city. It is completely changed from the memory that I had from, well, let's say that's about 30 years ago. It is a real gem, and it is a great way to spend the trip. We're going to actually spend the last 6 nights there because it allows us access to these other points nearby, like Grenada and Ronda and Marbella and so on. So, and then from there, we'll go back by high-speed train back to Madrid and end the trip there. So that's the overview of the trip. Lots of time in each of these places. And so let's get into it. First of all, as I say, we're going to start off in Madrid. And I'm going to mention that the main program includes 1 night in Madrid, but for those that wish, we have created a 2-night extension program, which I will mention here. If you've been to Madrid before, you may not be interested in the extension, but I think it's worth it because we're going to take in some of the key sites of Madrid. And, you know, as I said, Madrid for me, I like it almost even better than, well, I definitely like it better than Barcelona because it is very authentic and real. I mean, when you walk around the streets of Madrid, of course you see tourists, but it's predominantly locals. It's the capital of Spain. It has some incredible monuments. It has a wonderful feel to it. And it doesn't have like an uber touristy feel to it, like you find in some other cities. So we'll arrive in Madrid, of course, on the first day that we arrive. We don't plan a lot for that day. We'll do an icebreaker in the evening to get to know your fellow travelers and just sort of relax over the flight. But we're going to spend, as I mentioned, 2 nights on the pre-trip in Madrid. We're going to see some of the key sites, like, for example, the Prado and Reina Sofia museums. We won't have a lot of time inside those museums on our organized part of our trip because, like the other major museums in Europe, like the Louvre and the British Museum or the Tate Gallery, they take a lot of time. So, but if you are somebody that's interested in them, and I'm going to be talking about Picasso in a little bit, it is absolutely worth taking time to go into Reina Sofia to see Guernica. Because let's face it, you see collections that you just won't find anywhere else because obviously they're unique to these museums. We're going to be staying right on the edge of the Retiro Park. So it's about a 10-minute walk from the old town of Madrid and a stone's throw from the Prado Museum itself. It's about a 12-minute walk away. And so from here, you walk down Gran Via and you come and you see some of the major sites that there are to visit. And on our walking tour, on our first full day there, we're going to visit the biggest royal palace in Europe, the Puerta del Sol, the Plaza Mayor, which you see pictured here, which is sort of the main gathering place of Spain. It's the sort of the meeting place. It's never empty like this. It's an interesting picture, I think, that we found because this square is normally always full with all kinds of events and festivals and pomp and circumstance and whatever it may be. But we'll have lots of time to experience Madrid for what it is, to enjoy the tapas and the churros, which are a famous part of the culinary scene of Madeira. You might want to visit the Catedral Almudena, which is the main cathedral in Madrid. And as I say, will give you some free time to go out and enjoy. Maybe you'll go down to Cava Baja, which is the street where all the tapas bars are. We're going to be doing tapas at a few different stops around Spain. It's part of the culture. I think it's a lot of fun. It's a great way to eat, a great way to do meals. The second day of our pre-tour in Madrid, we're going to visit Toledo. Toledo, of course, used to be the former capital of Spain. back in, I think it was the 13th century or something like that. And it is it's a very, very cool town to visit. Sits up on a hilltop. And again, we can visit there by high-speed train. It's only about a 40-minute trip away. It is best known for the cathedral that's pictured here, as well as the Alcazar. And you're going to hear this term Alcazar a lot because the Alcazar, which is the Islamic terminology for fortress, if you will. You'll find them in each of the cities along the way, and each of them has their own unique, distinctive properties and architecture and design. They are what makes Spain, and in particular Andalusia, particularly special. So we'll have a nice morning tour to see some of these highlights of Toledo. Here in my home, actually, I have a beautiful painting I bought outside one of the galleries there. I think it's an amazing city, and worth the easy day trip. And you'll have lots of time to wander around the streets. Maybe you'll find a painting of your own to take back with you. And yeah, as I say, Toledo is one of my favorites in Spain. So then the following day is when the main program starts. So for those of you who have been in Spain before, or perhaps not interested in Madrid per se, we'll meet up with you on day 3 of the program, which will be day 1 for those of you that are flying in from Canada. And we will it'll be a free day for those who are on the pre-tour. And for others, you'll have an opportunity again, because we're staying in a great location in the center of the city, very close on the edge of the Retiro Park, which you see pictured here. You can wander into town, and as I say, we'll do another icebreaker for the whole group that'll be joining us on this day, before we then make our way down the following day. We're going to hop on that train, and we've got beautiful reserved seats on this super fast train. I think it goes about 300 kilometers an hour, similar to the TGV in France. And it'll whisk us down to Seville, where we will arrive in about 2.5 hours. And so it's a 540-kilometer journey. So it's kind of like Toronto to Montreal. And we can get there in a mere 2.5 hours, and passing through some of the fascinating countryside that we'll see along the way. Seville hardly needs any introduction. Its cathedral is, like many of the places that we're going to see along the way, a World Heritage Site. What I like it is the fact that it has one of the largest historical centers in all of Spain, if not all of Europe. And so you've got these sort of narrow, winding streets, classic with a lot of European cities. But here is where you start to see the distinctive Islamic influences from the time when Seville was actually the second capital of Andalusia. So back again centuries ago. The architecture here is remarkable. It's amazing. The old town, obviously, with all of these Moorish and Islamic influences. But then you cross the river into the newer part of town where they held the Olympics and Expo and so on. And it's very postmodern. So it's a very different feel altogether. For those of you who are sort of movie buffs or TV series buffs, of course, Star Wars was filmed here, Game of Thrones was filmed here. And, I'm not personally much of a TV fan of those things, but you can see why they selected these sites because of the brilliance of the architecture. What I particularly like about this trip as well is the fact that I've gone and sourced every single one of the hotels. That's why part of the reason why I went this past October was to be able to go and find those little gems of accommodation. Because let's face it, it makes your stay when you're in someplace that's, not a Hilton or a Sheraton, but something very classic and very in keeping with the charm of the city. So we're going to be staying in Casas de la Juderia. And I just loved this hotel in Seville because what they did is they took 27 individual houses and they connected them all via passageways and hallways, underground, overground. They've got a pool on the roof. It's a marvelous, marvelous place. You'll absolutely love it there. When we arrive in Seville, of course, we'll do a bit of an orientation tour. We are right in the heart of the city, literally just a stone's throw from the cathedral, which is, of course, in the center. And you'll have a chance to get around. We'll point out the best tapas bars, which again, Andalusia in particular are famous for. So lots to do in Seville. Of course, our first full day there, we're actually going to take you out on an excursion. We're going to head south to the towns of Jerez and Cadiz. And Jerez and Cadiz are as I say, in the southwestern part of Andalusia in Spain. And this region is particularly famous for horses, wine, and flamenco. We're going to do the first two of those things when we visit Jerez and Cadiz. Our stop at first will be in Jerez itself, which is known for its wine, and not just any wine, but in particular sherry. So we've all enjoyed a glass of sherry. These days, depending on who you are, it's gone a little bit out of vogue, but nevertheless, it is a delicious aperitif that many of us still enjoy over a meal. And when we're in Jerez, we'll visit a winery and get to understand a little bit the process of making sherry, because it is a complex fortified wine. So there's a whole art to making it, which is why it's only produced in a few regions of the world. So that'll be Jerez. We will also then, as I say, continue on to Cadiz, which is the oldest continuously inhabited city in Spain, dating back to 1,000 before Christ. So it's literally a 3,000-year-old city. We'll have time to wander around, visit the cathedral, take in the seaside, get a taste of the Mediterranean that we are going to enjoy when we go to Malaga a few days later. And we'll end off with a little bit of a demonstration of Spanish horsemanship by seeing an equestrian show, for which, again, Andalusia and this region are particularly well known. So even if you're not sort of somebody that follow horses and all the rest of it, the show that they put on here is really, really remarkable. They take a lot of pride in their equestrian culture. We'll head back to Seville for the evening. We'll have one more day in Seville where we're going to take in a little bit more of some of the highlights of the city, in particular the Real Alcazar. So I mentioned again, Alcazar Fortress. We're going to see one in each of the cities. The one in Seville is incredibly intricate. You get a little bit of a view of the outside facade here, again, with Moorish influences. And what's interesting about this Alcazar is actually it is a royal residence, the oldest one in Europe that is still used today as a royal residence. So it's quite a remarkable structure. So we'll see, again, the old part of the town in the center. We're going to cross over the Guadalquivir River, which is the river that bisects Seville and also Córdoba. And we're going to take in the Triana food market, where you'll get a chance to visit a great market that the locals favor. It's one of the most popular in the city. We get lots of time at leisure to sample some of the tasty delights and get a sense of what food is like in this part of Spain. The next day, we head down to Córdoba. This time we're going to drive up to Córdoba, and it's only about an hour and a half away. We're going to spend 3 nights in Córdoba. I really love this city. A lot of people visiting Andalusia will end up staying in Seville and doing a quick day trip to Córdoba. But it is honestly, in my opinion, worth spending some time, which is why we've designed the trip exactly this way. It is, as I mentioned before, it's also bisected by the Guadalquivir River that you can see in the foreground here. It has a number of really amazing sites. In fact, so much so that Córdoba is one of the 15 cities in the world where the entire inner city is designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. That is how interesting it is. And you get a sense from this picture, even this mix between the Mezquita, which I'll talk about, that's the building in the center, and all of these beautiful whitewashed buildings that comprise the Jewish quarter that is the area immediately around the town center. Once again, in Córdoba, we're going to be staying at, ironically, another Casas de la Juderia. It's kind of almost funny that we're staying in 2 hotels that have the same name. What's interesting again is that this one is not as large as the one in Seville. It's only got 5 houses that are interconnected. But again, when I went through this hotel, I just fell in love with the place because every room is a little bit different. Totally has the Andalusian influence in all of the design, both of the rooms themselves and all the little inner courtyards. It's a remarkable place to stay. And of course, as I say, you're right in the thick of things. You're like a 3-minute walk from the Mezquita, which is the main cathedral in Córdoba. So we are going to spend a day visiting the main highlights of Cordoba. First of all, we're going to see the Mezquita. And I'm going to just actually zip back to that last picture here because the Mezquita is here in the center. And what Mezquita is in Cordoba, it's actually a combination between a mosque and a church. And I tell you, this place was fascinating because, you know, we talk about all of the religious strife that exists around in the world. And yet, rather than destroying and building on top of what the last occupiers, so to speak, did, they simply expanded and expanded and expanded. And so it started off as a mosque with one wing of the building. Then they added on another wing of the mosque, each one holding something like 5,000 worshippers. And then at some point, the Christians came in and they built a cathedral in the middle of all this, but they didn't tear down the mosque. They built it right in the middle. And then they added the mosque back onto it. So it's literally a cathedral surrounded by a mosque. It's phenomenal. I've never seen anything like it. It's like literally I spent about 2 hours just gazing around at the architecture and how they managed to pull this off. It's quite a remarkable feat. We'll also go outside of town. It's about a 15-20 minute drive to the Castillo de Almodovar, which is another Game of Thrones site. Ironically, you can kind of tell by looking at the picture of it here. This is a castle, again, an Islamic castle that was built in and around the 12th century, which is truly remarkable and also offers some great vistas over the surrounding countryside. And this part of Andalusia is actually sort of, it's predominantly olive plantation. So it's almost an arid sort of a landscape with some huge mountains to the north that we're going to be passing by on our way to Seville. It's quite a dramatic landscape. So we'll spend part of the day at Almodovar. We'll then head on closer to the city, but still on the outskirts to a 10th century Medina called the Medina Azahara, the palace city. And what's interesting about this particular Medina is that it is UNESCO designated, as many of these sites are, but it is actually originally about 110 hectares of Palace City, but they've only thus far managed to excavate about 10% of it, which is still a significant portion. And we'll see some remarkable designs from this Medina from back in the 10th century when it was erected. But nevertheless, as I say, a lot of it still remains buried. But the highlight of all through the day for me is actually the evening. So we got a fairly full day on this one. I uncovered a very local restaurant, but a Michelin, nonetheless, Michelin rated restaurant, where we're going to have a cooking demonstration. And depending on if we're lucky enough that they are able to get a hold of a fresh tuna, I visited this restaurant and they will actually demonstrate how this is prepared and cut up and dissected. You know, we always know sort of tuna from the little hunk that you get in the supermarket for about $30. We'll actually get to see again, market willing, an entire tuna that get dissected and prepared in the most delectable of ways. I was really blessed to find this place, and I developed a great relationship with the owner. So that's El Envero that we're going to be visiting in the evening that day. We'll take a free day here because we'll have had a few days of a fairly full schedule up till now. And of course, we pride ourselves on including enough time to explore on your own. And Cordoba is a great town for that because it's small enough that you can walk literally around the whole thing, but there is enough to do and see, and markets and tapas bars. You can go in and take a closer look at that Roman bridge. There's some incredible botanical gardens. There's the Plaza de la Corredera, which is a sort of a gathering point for the city, often with markets and all kinds of things going on. It's a truly, truly amazing town. And I spent 3 days there myself in October, and I feel like I could have stayed a whole week. Nonetheless, we are going to move on from there and head to Malaga, about 2 hours drive to the south, located on the Mediterranean Sea, and passing through olive oil country and these big rolling hills. Malaga is a remarkable city. And as I said at the very beginning, I was really taken aback because I hadn't been there in quite a number of years. And people had said to me, you need to take a look at Malaga. It is not what it used to be, because it used to be sort of a very nefarious town in terms of drug trafficking and all kinds of stuff. And when I first went there as a backpacker, people were like, do not go into Malaga. It is nothing like that now. The city has gentrified, but not in a negative way. It has renovated so many of its buildings. It's brightened up its streets, that everything is like these beautiful polished sidewalks. It is a remarkable, remarkable city, which is why we're going to spend a whole 6 nights here, because I think the city itself is worth spending that amount of time, not to mention all the little towns that are along the coast. There's so many places. You might want to spend even longer here in Malaga. So when we arrive in, we're going to be staying again right downtown Palacio Solezio, again, a hand-picked a hotel that I found to be absolutely excellent and so beautifully done up and restored in taking into account, again, all of these Moorish and sort of Islamic influences that this region that we see all over the place. We're going to have a little orientation tour here, and then that very first evening, we're going to hit El Pimpi, which is a very famous, renowned local wine cellar. We have to book this way in advance because it's a super popular place and a great place to sort of get our start in Malaga. Malaga, of course, is home to the fabled artist Pablo Picasso. And so on our first full day there, we're going to visit the Alcazaba fortress, which sits on a hill just above the town center, which is in and of itself an incredible Moorish citadel, and gives you some great views. It's a nice orientation point for the city. But in the afternoon, we're going to visit the Picasso Museum. I did not have the time to visit it when I was there, but I was assured by Flavio, who will be our local guide, a lovely young chap who is super energetic, that this is a really an incredible museum. And, you know, we're all familiar with various works of Picasso. I mentioned Guernica, even though his most famous works are actually at museums in different parts of the world, in New York and Paris, in the Picasso Museum in Paris. What's interesting about this museum is that it follows the evolution of his work from his early days through all of the different, he lived to be 91, and he was created art through all kinds of different genres and styles. I mean, he was most famous for his Cubism work, but he was involved in surrealism and various other things. So it's really, really an interesting museum. And, you know, as I said, if you want to see his most famous work, if you didn't do it while during the day in Madrid at the beginning, there'll be another day at Madrid at the end to hit that Reina Sofia Museum. And it's one of the most celebrated paintings in the world. So that'll be our day at the Picasso Museum. We will, on this time, if you haven't already done it on your own, we will take in a flamenco show, partly because I wanted to save the best one that I could find for here in Malaga. So so we'll get to see flamenco, the flamenco dancing that Andalusia is again so famous for. The following day, we're going to head up to Alhambra, which of course is in Granada, only about an hour and a half away. And Alhambra is again an absolutely magnificent site. Of course, yet again, a stupendous UNESCO World Heritage Site with multiple palaces and gardens and so on inside this whole complex. It is, one of the most favored things to see in all of Spain. It's worth a whole day. We will spend the better part of the day. We'll take in perhaps a little bit of Granada itself, but the main focus of our day will be to see the Alhambra, the famous Alhambra. So following that, all of that excitement, we're going to need some free time to enjoy Malaga a little bit. Again, so many great things to see. You can go further up the mountain to visit Castillo del Gibralfaro, which again has terrific views. You get a sense of the countryside here, the rolling hills, which are now dotted with houses and condos and all the rest of it. You might want to visit, you might want to take a swim in the Med. Again, I was there exactly a year ahead of the program, so this past October, and the Mediterranean is still 22, 23 degrees. In fact, I was told that October is in Spain, in Malaga, at least on the Costa del Sol, is the warmest month of the year for the Mediterranean. So it made it really, really pleasant time of the year to visit and to take a dip in the beach. There's many other museums and so on to take in, but just wandering around the streets, I spent only 2 days in Malaga, and once again, I felt like I could have spent a whole week there, which is exactly why we will do that. We're also going to head up to visit Ronda, which is up in the hills, again, about an hour and a half outside of Malaga. And here we see the famous Puente Nuevo, this iconic bridge that you see spanning the two sides of this town. We'll see it from this location here below town, but we won't make you walk up. We'll drive back around to the city itself, which houses the oldest bullfighting ring in Spain. We don't actually attend any bullfighting. They still obviously do it, but it's a little bit controversial. I'll let you render your own opinion on that. If you really want to see a bullfight when you're in Spain, I'm sure it can be arranged, but we're not including in the tour because feedback I've gotten from members who've been to bullfights were a little bit appalled at how the whole thing goes down. Nevertheless, the bullfighting rings are very interesting structures. And as I say, Ronda has the oldest one in Spain. We'll enjoy lunch here and we'll take these windy roads. This is one for those that take Rabol that you might need it. The roads are spectacular. The views are amazing, but they are very windy and very narrow. So it's a bit of an adventure getting up to Ronda and back. We'll spend another day touring along the coast, visiting Mijas and Marbella. Marbella is probably a term that's familiar to you. It was and continues to be a very famous seaside town. It's gotten so famous though that Vladimir Putin has a house there, and lots of other questionable characters. So much so that I think that it detracts a little bit from the city as a whole, which is the major reason why we decided not to stay there, because it's just not that friendly a place for average folk like us. The old town is magnificent and very much worth a visit. We will do that. But on the way back, we are going to visit Mijas, which is a very charming town up in the hills between Malaga and Marbella. And part of what makes its charming is the fact that they still use donkey taxis to get around town. So we'll hopefully spend enough time in town so that you can enjoy a donkey taxi ride and maybe catch the Contemporary Art Museum. But people come back saying, wow, Mijas, we should have spent the whole day there because it is really the highlight of the day. But I think it's important to see Marbella, to see what it's all about, to say that you've been there. But I think that when you come back, you'll kind of say, oh yeah, okay, there's more interesting places to be in Spain. That's why I go to these places, to check them out and see what's going to appeal to our members. We'll have one final night, one final dinner in Malaga before we say goodbye. You'll probably want to come back. I loved it. I can't wait to go back. And then we'll take the train back to Madrid for our farewell dinner at a wonderful restaurant that we've picked out. And then it'll be time to make our way back home and bid adieu to Andalusia and southern Spain. This is really a wonderful trip that it's a remarkable part of Spain, and it's absolutely warrants spending 2 weeks down here. In fact, at some points you'll wish that you had more time. And we will offer other trips to other parts of Spain. I just think that this part of Spain warrants this part of the trip. So I'll give you a few of the details. Of course, the program itinerary has all of that. This program comes in at $76.90 Canadian based on double occupancy, which, considering the fact that we are using really amazing boutique hotels in the center of the towns, I was really pleased that we were able to get this program out at this price point. We're going at the end of October, which is a perfect time of the year. The weather is still generally great. I had excellent weather while I was there, not too warm. It was sort of in the around sort of 20 to 22 degrees. A couple of days it got a little bit warmer than that, particularly in Malaga. And in the evening it's a little bit cooler, but it's great traveling weather for this because of course in summertime Spain is extremely hot. It's really unbearable. So on this, and I won't go through all of these, of course, all of your accommodation, as I mentioned, in these wonderful hotels We've got a Malaga pass in there. We've got sightseeing with some excellent local guides, all of whom I've met. Our guides in Seville, in Malaga, are wonderful people, and lunches and dinners throughout, depending on the day, as per usual. So the pre-tour extension for the first couple of nights and all the touring and transportation it comes in at about $1,200 for those that are interested in that. And that is purely optional. You can join us for that, or you're welcome to just make your own arrangements to stay a couple extra days in Madrid if you'd like. So that pretty much wraps it up. The only thing that is excluded from our trip, as with all of our trips, airfare, which we can obviously arrange for you, and cancellation and travel medical insurance, which are essential in this day and age. For those of you who sign up before the next month, we have been successfully negotiating a bit of a deal with our hotel partners whenever we're able to sort of remit some deposits early on to show our interest. So we pass that on to you. So there's a couple of $100 off if you sign up for the trip before the middle of January. So, Paula, time to answer any questions that any of our members might have. I see that a few have come in.
Yes, I've got a question here. A member's asking if they wanted to extend their stay. Do any other programs line up? I was just checking. We've got
Yep.
actually about 5 on the front end that line up really well. So
Yep.
if anyone does want to know more about those instead of me, because there is so many. And then I've got one on the back end.
Which is
So
Morocco.
to give you an idea, Morocco on the back end, we've got one room came available on that trip that was sold out. And on the front end, Tuscany, Ireland, Caucasus, so Georgia and Armenia have got limited availability, as well as Slovenia and Croatia and Turkey. So yeah, there's quite a bit of options for those that like to
Combined two trips, which obviously, yeah,
extend.
it took on the flying back and forth to Europe. Never a bad idea. So just give Paula or Barb a call. They'll be able to set you up. But of course, you may make your own arrangements, and a lot of our members do continue on or fly in early and do something. Obviously, yeah, we encourage you to travel as much as you can. Let's face it, we only live once, so might as well enjoy anything we can. Are there any other questions that have come in?
We have a question about the group size.
Yep. So the group size for this kind of a trip will be somewhere between 10 and a maximum of 18 people. So these kinds of trips we keep small. Well, we keep all of our trips small, but for this trip, because we'll be traveling all together, we'll be traveling in a group of no more than 18 people.
Perfect. I have another question that's come in here with regards to the activity level, and it sounds like there's a lot of walking. Do we have recommendations in terms of what footwear we recommend
Yeah,
members pack?
good footwear. That I wanted to mention that during the webinar, and it's a good point. This is definitely a walking tour. There is a lot of walking. You can't get around the Alhambra. You can't get around the old town of Seville. It's all pedestrian. There are, quite frankly, a lot of stairs, particularly in the Alhambra, and even in the central part of Malaga and Ronda. It's basically all pedestrian. So there is a lot of walking involved. It's not, we always stop and takes breaks here and there, but you need to be in pretty good shape. Your mobility level needs to be good. I would say you need to at least fulfill our minimum suggested requirement of being able to walk 10,000 steps a day, and about, I would say, 1.5 kilometers at any one go. That's kind of the benchmark for this trip, because there's really no other way to see these cities other than on foot.
Fantastic. And many members love that. So that leads me, Gordon mentioned the activity level. We do have an additional information document for everyone that is interested. So feel free to shoot Barbara a message or give us a call, and we can forward that over to you. It's got a lot of handy information, what great foods you'll taste, the activity level, links to the accommodations, and more details that you probably haven't even thought of yet.
Yeah. Exactly, exactly. So we're always updating our additional information with all those bits and pieces of information, and it's always a live document that you can refer back to from time to time, because we do update it if we get new information about any aspect of the trip. I think I talked about the weather as well, because sometimes something I forget. The weather, I think in October, this is the perfect time to visit southern Spain because the weather is still nice, but it's certainly not too hot. And it's definitely not too cold. You could get a spot of rain when you're there, but it's a very dry part of the continent. So generally, rain isn't really much of an issue. So uh, yeah, the weather is perfect. Cool.
Perfect. And would you
All the
say, Gordon, kind of a range of like mid-teens to low 20s
I would
typically?
say, yeah, I would say at night you're going to drop no lower than the mid-teens. And during the day, you're in the sort of 20 to 22 degrees on average. If you're up a little bit higher in the mountains in Ronda, it's a little bit cooler. But when I say a little bit cooler, if the sun is shining, it's still going to be at least 20 degrees. So it's going to be warm enough. It's going to be warm enough to swim in the Mediterranean. As I mentioned, when I was there, the Mediterranean was still 22 degrees at the end of October. So beautiful time of the year.
Fabulous. Thank you. That's all the questions that I have come into me so far.
Fantastic. But if you have any other questions, as I just put on that last slide, and you have our information anyway, just drop us a note. We're always happy to answer your questions and make sure that you've got everything you need to know. We think this will be a popular trip. A lot of people have been asking about Spain. So I encourage you, take advantage of the early booking bonus, sign up soon. And I hope to see you on this trip next October. Or if it's not me, one of our other wonderful hosts. And yeah, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your patience with our technical challenge at the beginning there. I appreciate that. And we will see you on an upcoming webinar. We have one more left, I think, before the this season. Do we not? And now I forget.
Yes, on I believe next Tuesday for the Active Wellness Czechoslovakia program.
That is correct. So our one of the newest programs to Czechia and Slovakia, our active wellness spa program. If you've ever thought about a wellness vacation, this is the ultimate. Join us for that next Tuesday in the evening, at the same time, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So in the meantime, take care. I hope you are all well, and I look forward to seeing some of you on upcoming trips. We have to Thailand in the early part of next year, and otherwise somewhere else along the way. I'm sure our paths will cross. Take care and have a great rest of the day. Bye for now.